Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our February 16th Board of County Commission meeting. We will begin this morning with an invocation by Pastor Dave Albers from Redeemer Lutheran Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for allowing me to do this. All right. Father in heaven, we are so privileged and honored that we get to live in this country. We thank you for our presidents. As yesterday we were to celebrate President's Day, particularly Washington and Lincoln and what they stood for and everything they established for this country. We pray, Lord, that we could always have our leaders follow in their footsteps. We pray for our county commissioners as they work together as a team to do what is best for the county. We pray, Lord, that you would bless us as citizens, and we ask you to bring an end to this pandemic. Also that we, though, respect each other until we can all get vaccinated and be a little more open. But until that time, Lord, help us to be neighborly. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a couple additional items on the agenda today. We have consent 14, which is a release of mineral rights on property formerly owned by Martin County. Consent 15, adopting a proclamation declaring 211 Awareness Month in Martin County. And we have a request to withdraw an item, consent number 10, athletic field use policy.
Madam Chair, move approval of the agenda with the item consent 10 to be withdrawn, and the additional two items, of 14 and 15.
Great. Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith to approve the agenda, seconded by Commissioner Smith.
And do both.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner. Feels like a Monday. Commissioner, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. And by the way, unfortunately, Commissioner Jenkins had a conflict today, so he is unable to be here. So we are going to move on to proclamations presented by Ms. Laura Dupre.
Good morning, Commissioners. Our proclamation today is declaring Future Farmers of America Week in Martin County. The Future Farmers of America, FFA, helps provide a strong foundation for the youth of America and the future of the food, fiber, and natural resources systems. Future Farmers of America Week is February 22nd through the 29th, and the Board would like to recognize FFA for promoting leadership, personal growth, and career success to the youth in our community. And here to accept, we have David Hafner, VP of the Martin County Farm Bureau.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair and fellow commissioners and staff. My name is David Hafner. I am the president of the Martin County FFA alumni and supporters. I'm proud to be here today on behalf of South Fork FFA. Future Farmers of America makes a positive difference in the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agricultural education. Their motto is learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, and living to serve. And you'll see that within the members of the FFA along with the alumni. It becomes kind of just a part of your life. Notable alumni include country music legends Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, George Strait, NFL All-Pro center Marquise Pouncey with the Steelers, U.S. Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, and President Jimmy Carter. A few of my local favorites are Roger Carmine, Austin Bunce, and they're both alumni here in Martin County, and they're serving every day throughout the Martin County Fair, day and night, just helping the next class of alumni come up behind them. And it's really great to see how these people in this organization just bring up that next wave. We have a great program at South Fork High School under advisors Mrs. Wendy Shutman and Mr. Derek Crum, and I'm excited for the growth in Martin County as we're expecting a second chapter to open at Murray Middle under Mrs. Lindsay Dolan in the very near future. So thank you very much for taking the time to recognize this very worthy organization and the youth within who will someday be our future leaders. Please stop by the Martin County Fair if you haven't already, and take a moment to talk with the youth in the blue corduroy. they're pretty exceptional. Thank you.
Mr. Hafner, before I present, I have a question for you on the FFA through South Fork used to do a community barn type thing where they would take care of the animals. That was on site at South Fork. I realize they no longer have that on site South Fork. Do they have that somewhere else, or is there plans to have that community barn type structure somewhere else?
Facilities are still there. They can have animals on campus, but they cannot stay on campus. They can come for the day, and then they must return home in the evening.
The animals must return home?
And the students. And the students, preferably, yes. Yeah, so,
That was a great program for getting people involved that, maybe couldn't otherwise. They lived in a location where they couldn't keep a steer or, swine.
I guess there was an incident many years ago, probably close to 20 years ago, maybe not quite that long, and it was decided at that point to not have animals on campus. So it's ultimately a school board decision that it was removed. I do know with the Martin County Fair, once we get the new location, that will be part of the plan, is to have a location where these youth can keep their animals at the new fairgrounds, so they'll have an opportunity if they don't have the land themselves, so they can participate in these programs.
So what he's really saying is, you were in the program like 10 years ago, but he says it was 20, so it couldn't have been 20. Because
I was certainly
clearly you-
longer than 20, but I'll go with 10, though. That makes me feel better. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Stay for a picture. She's blocking the seal.
We got photo bomb in the back. 2, 3. One more. 1, 2. Sarah's just happy she's not in the background. I'm always in the background.
Moving on, public comment. Okay, if you have, if you're going to speak this morning during public comment, please fill out one of these. I have 1, 2, 3 speaker forms. And we will start with Dawn Jackson.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Dawn Jackson. I became the landlord of Palm City Apartments located at 604 Southwest 35th Street in Palm City when my dad, Eduardo Correa, the owner and builder of Palm City Apartments, passed away in 2018. My husband and I are full-time residents of Jensen Beach, and I'm here on behalf of the 54 tenants that live in Palm City Apartments. Specifically, I'm here to request your assistance in opening a discussion about Palm City Apartments' connection to city water. The complex is comprised of 36 one-bedroom units and 24 two-bedroom units. It used to have 2 other buildings, but they were commissioned for the new bridge to go up. Because our aim is to continue to provide quality, affordable housing for Palm City residents, we've been repurposing the rent revenue into modernizing individual apartments as they become vacant. So far, we've redone 12 units and only raised the rent $50 so that we can keep the rent affordable for people that live and work in the area. In addition, we've begun capital improvements, which include replacing original air conditioning units, so those date back to 1985, installing new impact glass windows. We've already done 1 building, and we have another one, the permit, we're waiting for the order to come in, and repainting the exteriors of all 5 buildings. We expect to have these improvements completed within 3 to 5 years. I could have sold Palm City Apartments many times in the 2 years since my dad passed away. I've had many offers. People call all the time. And I didn't want to sell. I didn't want the tenants in Palm City to have possibly an absentee landlord that maybe lived in another state. I wanted to give them a safe, comfortable healthy place to live with a landlord on site. And that's why we still now have Palm City Apartments, and we're continuing to make improvements so that people love living there. Believe me, life would have been a lot easier had I sold. You know, I'm actually retired. I did my working duty as a teacher, public school teacher, and taught 6th grade English for many years. And but obviously, being a landlord of an apartment building and another one in Stewart, Sable Palm Villas, which I'm landlord with my 2 partners, makes for a person coming out of retirement. So getting back to the water. So, oh, already? Okay. Coquina Cove, Heritage Cove, the crossings at Indian River, Astorwood Apartments, all surrounding apartments in Palm City have city water. And
Ma'am, your time's up.
Palm City.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Campy has a question or a comment.
Yes, thank you. Ma'am, thank you very much for coming forward. I wasn't aware of your request, but I have noticed the improvements on your property, and I appreciate that. I know the neighbors do as well. I'm sure the tenants. Just contact my office and let's brainstorm a little bit, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay,
Nurses
thank
live in the best district.
you, Dawn. And we have Colby, looks like Besaw. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. I know most of you have spoke with me, Doug Smith at Campy, and unfortunately, Harold Jenkins isn't here today. For those of you not aware, my home flooded 8 months ago in the Hope Heights, Hope Sound neighborhood. Now that 8 months has passed, I've renovated my house for the second time in 4 years. Now I'm told to put faith in a federal government that panders to other nations other than our own. I'm still waiting for help. The only remediation in our neighborhood has been pumping of water out of the neighborhood. They've put a green light to build a Publix. They put a green light to build another golf course in the Medalist. The Medalist built their first golf course, causing us not to pump the water to the Loxahatchee, where it should be going naturally. My question is, where's our help? I get our emails from the county commission, and here we are waiting still. Where's our answers?
Thank you. Thank you. We can have staff or Dawn reach out to you with an update. Mr. Donaldson?
While you're here.
Yeah, we get our emails, and we keep waiting on DEM. We keep waiting on FEMA. We keep telling us that the monies are procured for our issue. My other issue is we've gotten rain the last 2 days, but there's nothing been done to the drainage. There's just a patch on a slight fix. Now what says we don't get rain for the next 2 weeks? Or the rainy season comes in? If my house floods again, I have no other option but to lawyer up and then come after you guys for neglect. Because now the neighborhood's going to flood again. And I'm one of 3 neighbors that chose to rebuild. So where do we go?
Well, great. We will have, this is a time for public comment, so we're happy that you came and expressed your public comment, and we will have staff reach out to you with an update and a timeline of some of the projects that are planned.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Have a great day. Okay.
1 second. Ms. Krista, can you have someone come down and speak to this gentleman while he's still here in the building?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think that's a good idea. Because I know that we all get those same emails that give sort of a recap, and there's a lot of information every single time because there's a lot going on. But I think the news, and I can appreciate you're there, I've been to your home, but I think the news is, as far as government is concerned, is positive. I think that a lot of the things that we were hopeful that could or could not happen did happen for the county and for the neighborhood versus being denied. So I get that there is a time frame. Oh, Mr. Donaldson's here, so maybe you guys can talk in the lobby or whatever and carry on. So if you head that way, sir, he'll head that way and meet you in the lobby.
All right, thank you. And we have final speaker this morning during public comment is Amy Pritchett.
Good morning.
Morning.
In January, I came before all of you requesting that the speed limits in the Horseshoe Point area, Rocky Point, be looked at as, I don't want to go over that again. But in 2 consecutive meetings, I was told by commissioners that there would be an agenda item placed for the discussion to bring all of the residential neighborhoods into a similar speed limit. I'm waiting for that agenda item to appear, and I'm just reminding everyone that I would like to see it this year, sooner than later. My second concern is our subscription to the regional planning boards and how we're giving up local control to outside people. I lived in New York for 35 years, and we left because of regionalism. We left because strings are attached to all these grants that come in. And I understand it's important to have funding, but when you do that, you give up local control. In our case in New York, you would get a community grant, and suddenly builders were before you asking for zoning changes because the strings attached are in those grants. I know the governor is against having regional planning boards, and I just would like to voice my concern that I think we're going down a dark path if we continue to subscribe to regional planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that looks like the final public comment for this morning. Oh, you have somebody on Zoom? Great.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Good morning, we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning. It's Frank McShaw from Party Farms. I would just like to speak about and thank Tim Gordon for meeting with myself and my colleagues last week to talk about the flooding in Palm City Farms. There was a lot of good information about what was happening, the actions that have been taken by the council. However, as a committee, we feel that we're still way behind schedule and we're going to have issues again this rainy season. So, once again, I would like to invite you all to our meeting on the 25th of February to hear the community talk about the flooding issues, again to explain what's been carried out so far by the county, and obviously looking for more answers. That includes an update on the $750,000 report and looking at water flow and watershed across the whole of Palm City Farms and Old Palm City. Once again, thank you to Jim and his team for meeting with us, and hopefully we'll see you at our meeting on the 25th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else on Zoom for public comment?
There are, but their hands aren't raised. Should I just unmute and see if they want to talk? No, yeah.
Okay. All right, that looks like it completes our public comment this morning. And we're going to move to commissioner comment. And we're going to start with Commissioner Hurd.
Thank you, Donna. Want to start out with EAA Reservoir? This past Friday, I had the distinct pleasure to take a field trip down to the EAA Reservoir. That's part of Central Everglades planning process. And it was a beautiful day, and I just wanted to show the progress that's being made down there. If you don't know where this is, it's just south of Belle Glade. Donna, are there other photos? Go back. Continue. Continue. So let me start here. This was blasting that occurred that we partook. The governing board member, Charlotte Roman, was the detonator, actually. And this is 700 lineal feet of rock that was blown up. They're having to blast because the cap rock is very hard. So they drill down 18 feet into the limestone and set explosives in there. And they're placed about maybe 5 feet apart. It looks like they're blasting a canal, an intake or seepage canal, and the rock is so hard that they can't excavate it without blasting it first. So we were witness to this day's blasting, and then go to the next one. The other way. This is what it looks like after it's blown up, and then an excavator can get in there and excavate down to 18 feet. And then the next photo, and this is what the canals look like. As I said, they're about 40 feet wide and 18 feet deep, and there are going to be 2 canals that are dug. This is the state's project, which is the stormwater treatment area. It's approximately 6,500 acres. It's adjacent to the federal project, which is being designed right now, which is the Army Corps project, which is a 10,500 acre reservoir. So this is what is done as part of SERP, which is a project that when we've developed the property through urban development, or we've laser leveled the land and planted a or rather a monoculture crop. These are the kinds of solutions, options for Everglades restoration that can be found. And so, commissioners, I urge you all to take advantage of the opportunity to go down and visit the site. The blasting is going to be happening through March, maybe, and it's really, really an interesting process, an interesting project. And I also took a field trip to visit the Allapattah Flats project. Many of us went to the ribbon cutting for this. This is a 12,000 acre project that's in Martin County. It's west of the Turnpike, west of I-95, off of 714. And it's 12,000 acres, and it's a natural land component. It's part of Indian River Lagoon South. And so far, 6,700 acres have been restored, and another 6,000 acres on this project remain to be restored. And can you show the next slide? That's more of Allapattah. And next one. That's more of Allapattah. And then the last one? Or maybe there's one more? 2 more. So I just wanted to show you, these are 2 very, very important SERP projects. Very, very different projects. Martin County is the only natural lands component of SERP. In all of SERP, this is what can be done to improve water quality and timing and distribution when the land has not been completely overdrained, developed, overfarmed. So it's a remarkable project. It's holding a lot of water. It's just gorgeous. It's recruiting all kinds of wildlife and birds. This is the kind of natural recruitment of plants that's occurring. These are the plants that would have been historically in this environment. It's really the only true environmental restoration. And to that end, it's extremely important. The this project was authorized in the 2007 Water Resources Development Act bill passed by Congress. And for some reason, all of the natural lands projects weren't included in that approval. And the Water Management District and the Army Corps of Engineers just signed an agreement or agreed to put the remaining natural lands in Indian River Lagoon South. That is going to make the project more expensive and different. So it has to undergo a post-authorization change report by the Army Corps of Engineers. They're going to be reconfiguring the project, adding more cost, adding more benefits, calculating those benefits. It'll have to have a chief's report. It will have to be authorized once again in the next Water Resources Development Act. So the Army Corps of Engineers is going to do that change report in 2021 and have it ready for authorization in the next WRDA bill. So that's wonderful news. So I just wanted to show the progress that's being made in order to improve water quality and timing in Martin County and throughout South Florida.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take field trips.
Great. Commissioner Campy.
Madam Chair, thank you. I know that we're going to have an update on the coronavirus strategy here in Martin County, and I'm glad to see our friends from the Health Department here. I was hoping that we could take departmental agenda item number 3 that is later in the agenda. It's the EREF discussion. I know that there are members from EREF here, and if we could take that after the coronavirus, I would appreciate it so that we can hear from those folks that are uniquely involved, and then they can go on about their day. Thank you.
That's all for your comments?
Yes.
We have staff that is on the line to do presentation, so I will reshuffle it slightly, but we're going to take the water quality and coral reef before we take ERAF. If you're here to speak on ERAF, can you please raise your hand? Okay, so we have a couple people here. All right, we'll try to accommodate the best we can. Commissioner Smith. Okay, I have some exciting thing. I think it's exciting to share. About 2 years ago, one of my goals, and I maintain that goal every year, is to increase communications and increase transparency with our residents. So with that, we've put some communication goals in line. We've worked on some things. And one of my original goals 2 years ago was to have a citizens app where you can get information. What is the one thing that we always have in our hand is this device right here. And no longer do we all go right to the website for information. We want access, from this device. So we've been working for almost 2 years now on this Citizens app, where you see on your screen the front page. But if you go to your device and go to the App Store, whether it be an iPhone or Android, go to the App Store and you type in Connect Martin, then you can download the Martin app. And as you see on the front page, it has everything from how to get engaged, how to contact us for a request for service, how to look at our agendas, how to go about getting a building permit, to pay a utility bill, transit, emergency information. When I first got elected, we were in the middle of a toxic algae bloom, and there were so many questions online, social media, what's open, what's closed due to this, and I thought originally this would be a great way to communicate. If you're driving down the road and you have, something that you have a question, whether it be drainage, whether it be somebody dumping debris on the side of the road, you have this in your hand. You can go right to the app and put a request for service. You could upload a picture. So there's so many great ways that we can communicate with you. This is just one more tool so that, we at the county can communicate with our residents. I'm really, really excited that we're finally able to launch it. It has, as you see on this top gold bar, it has COVID information. So you can open your phone, hit this, go directly to the information. So really excited that we can have this as one more tool to communicate with our residents. And you can download it by going to the App Store and typing in Connect Martin. So,
Awesome.
yeah, I'm very excited. So it's a great accomplishment, and I think it is a long time coming, and I think it's going to be a great tool, and it's something that too we can analyze as we go along and see what information people are using, or if there's information that we should have on there that we don't currently have. So we look forward to your input. And as far as in the district community events, we know that in the middle of my district we have the Martin County Fair happening all week long. I was able to go to the opening on Friday, and they definitely put certain COVID protocols in place. So there were people enjoying the fair, and it was nice to see. They will be going until the 20th, I believe, Saturday. So so please visit them at the original fairgrounds here in Stuart. And that's all I have for today. Miss Krista. Ms. Woods? No? Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. All right. We're going to now move on. We're going to take, I see our health department folks here today. We're going to take departmental number 4, COVID update.
You want me to move your mic?
Yes, please.
So good morning. Okay. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so happy to see all of you in person. It's been a long time. Thank you for allowing me to give you a brief update on our COVID-19 situation, and especially our vaccination strategies and what we have coming around the corner. So just briefly, to date, the pandemic cases in Florida, as you can see, are 1,830,988. And unfortunately, we've had 28,934 deaths in the state of Florida. Martin County, you can see the cases to date are 10,110, and the deaths 269. The Department of Health responsibilities still remain the same as they were in the beginning, although we have expanded from case investigation and contact tracing to, of course, COVID-19 vaccinations. We've provided testing, and we've put a little hold on the testing right now because, as you know, our main focus not only is the case investigation and contact tracing, but really the vaccination process. Collaboration with partners. I can't even begin to tell you how the amazing partners that we have here in this county. I want to just recognize a few of them quickly. Of course, the Martin County government, Martin County Emergency Management, my colleague, Sally and her team have been amazing. Cleveland Clinic, Martin Health, Florida Community Health Center, Martin County School District, the City of Stuart, including the incredible officers that are there with us during our pods, the Village of Indiantown, Medical Reserve Corps, Kaiser Nursing students, and of course, a special thank you to my team who have been working nonstop for the past year. So currently, let's just talk briefly about the two vaccines that you know have been FDA received emergency FDA approval. Pfizer, of course, is the one that requires much more specialized handling with the cold storage, and the Moderna is the one that we are receiving and vaccinating our citizens with. With the Pfizer, you know, it's a minimum of 21 days apart. You have to be 16 and older. Of course, we're not in that age group at this time, and the efficacy rate is 95%. Moderna's minimum of 28 days apart, ages 18 and over, and the efficacy rate is 94.1%. As you know, with these vaccines, they're different vaccines. They're not your traditional vaccine. They're called the mRNA trigger vaccine, and it triggers a response in the body to recognize this little protein. And then what that does is teaches the cell to say, oh, this is foreign. We need to produce antibodies to protect against this. So simply put, believe me, it's very complex regarding that whole process, but just briefly said.
Yes,
Is,
Carolyn.
While you're there at that point, at that
Yes.
question. So I get asked all the time, or there's a constant conversation about what you just said and the difference between that and a typical flu vaccine.
right.
Is,
So with some of the other vaccines, usually they take like a dead germ of that flu, and they will then look in the laboratories to see what the previous history was of the prior years, and then they configure from that, and they look at the structure and so on, and compile a flu vaccine that they feel would meet the potential for some of the variants. As you've heard, the variant strains, right? Well, with viruses, they mutate. So that is, that's the difference.
so that's taking an actual strain and synthesizing it and making more of it
Right,
to combat what might be next year's
right,
flu.
exactly.
This one is not that way at all.
No, so this one, again, is teaching the cell, which is very different. It's it doesn't affect your DNA at all. So it doesn't affect your cell structure, your genetic makeup or anything like that. This is just teaching the cell to recognize the spike protein. You see those little spikes on the picture of the virus, and it's teaching your cell to recognize that spike protein and then produce those antibodies because it knows it's foreign. So it's, okay, let's build up those antibodies. In case this virus comes into my body, I'm going to have these antibodies ready to attack them. Kind of put it in a
Good
simple
enough.
way.
It's a question or a conversation that I hear a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And people are concerned about taking.
This is a very clean vaccine, I would say. I mean, it doesn't have preservatives in it, it doesn't have latex, eggs, like some of the other vaccines do. So it is relatively, I would call it like a clean vaccine. It has some salts as preservatives, and yeah,
Thank you.
it's pretty safe. So let's see. Okay. And one good thing is that they're showing that the studies of these two vaccines are working against the variant strains. And there's been the 3 variant strains they've been talking about. The B117 is the one that's the UK strain. And then you have your South African strain and your Brazilian strain. So, yeah. So that's fortunate to have that. Okay. This slide really is just to give you a quick view of where to go for some good information at the Florida Health COVID-19.gov site. And if you go to the COVID-19 vaccine report, it will list all of the different counties. And here, this is a snapshot that I just received this morning for Martin County. On the next slide, I'm going to talk specifically about Martin County. Here on this slide, you could see that it lists demographics, race, ethnicity, gender, the doses administered, and the total people vaccinated. So let's take a quick look at Martin County. So Martin County's population is 161,044, according to the most recent census. The 65 and older population is 49,732. So the percent of our population that is 65 and older is 31%. So those that have been vaccinated are 24,769. So we're averaging at a 50% rate, which is really excellent. So that 24,000 is comprised of first dose. So you can see here that 16,622 of our 65 and older have received their first dose, and then 8,147 have completed the series. And remember, Moderna is that 28-day to, there's a 4-day leeway there. So you'll see that now you'll be seeing the series being completed. So total vaccination so far in Martin County to date is 24,769, or 50%. Okay, so let's talk about vaccination options and how do we schedule a vaccine, which has been a challenge since day one and still is a challenge, as we know. A lot has to do with supply and demand, and the state of Florida, so we have a few options here. So the state of Florida just has implemented a new online system, and if you can't do it online, they do have the phone number that you can call. And so basically what will happen is if you go on the myvaccine.florida.gov site, it will take you to a pre-registration page. And on that page, you will put in your name, your phone number. It'll ask you a few questions, and you are on a wait list. So it's not an appointment that you're scheduling. You're on a wait list. So then what'll happen is you'll be contacted from the call center, and will tell you that, yes, say the Department of Health is having an event on such and such a day. We have this time available or that time available. They will book you into your slot, and they will tell you when to come, and then you'll go through that process. When you arrive at our facility, that's when you'll actually be registered into this system. Now, I'm not going to tell you there haven't been some challenges with it. There definitely have been. And I know that they're working daily on this.
Caroline? I'm
Smith.
sorry.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
that's specifically, though, for the state health department,
That is correct.
not any of the other, which I think is maybe your next screen coming up for Publix or Walgreens
Correct.
or anybody like that. It's merely going through the state.
That is absolutely right.
Okay.
Yes. Now, our other options that we have at this point is Cleveland Clinic, as we all know, martinhealth.org. You can go on their site, you can call, but they are doing mostly online appointments through their MyChart, which I'm sure most of you are familiar, you've heard that and are familiar with. And of course, Publix. So Publix also has an online system and appointments only. Sam's Club, Walmart, and Winn-Dixie, unfortunately, are not available in Martin County, but our neighboring counties in St. Lucie and Vero and Palm Beach do have some of their stores that are providing the vaccine. So the recommendation is for you to, if you're interested, go online and see who has it and who doesn't. CVS and Walgreens, that's to be determined. I know they're in the process of coming on board, but we don't have a specific date yet at this time. So just a couple of pictures I wanted to show you regarding one of our strategies. So when we first started vaccinating on December 30th, we developed a drive-through process at our facility, and it really has worked out extremely well. A very smooth process. You have an appointment, you come in, we check you off on the list, we ask you some questions, we look at your forms, etc. And we, then bring you to the next triage area where we ask you some minor health questions, and then from there you go get vaccinated, and then from there you wait and for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your situation. The state also incident management team provided the National Guardsmen and contracted nurses, and they've been terrific. And here you can see, you don't have to get out of your car. You can stay right in your car and be vaccinated. So future vaccination plans. As you know, we're heading into the rainy season, and soon upon us will be our hurricane season. So we, with emergency management and team, we look to transition these operations from our health department to the Treasure Coast Mall. And the location that we've selected is the H.H. Gregg, the former H.H. Gregg facility. And this will be a walk-up appointment scheduling situation using the Florida site. We will be working again with all of our community partners to meet that 65 and older population, and of course our healthcare workers and first responders. One of the other things we're doing is vaccinating our underserved areas, and we are sending small strike teams to those locations like Golden Gate, Indiantown, Banner Lake. We're having an event at the NAACP. As you know, you may have heard, and I should comment on this, the vaccine is delayed arrival because of the inclement weather. So what we've done in anticipation, now this is the first dose, so everyone who is scheduled to come to the health department this week for your second dose, we have the second doses. So not to worry. The second doses we have it in our medication room, and you will receive your second dose. So not to worry. I want to be clear about that. So what we're waiting for is our first dose allocation. And so they've said that it could be as late as Thursday. So we did have some outreach events, like we had one at the NAACP. And we've been working with Jimmy and his team, but we've asked if we could delay this till the following week. And the same thing with, we had House of Hope over in the Golden Gate area on Friday, and we asked to switch that out to the following week. And so that's how we're working with that situation currently. Also, we're working with our faith-based organizations to provide small strike teams going to these churches in some of these underserved areas as well. We did a large outreach to the Church of God in Port Solano on Friday, and we provided 296 vaccines. So key messages, as you know, limited allocation of vaccines, which of course which impacts our vaccinations that we can provide. Importance of the second dose. You really want to make sure you have that second dose for maximum effectiveness. It can be scheduled later than the 4-day leeway. What they're recommending is to have it as close to that 20-day as possible, but if that is not possible, you can go as far out as to 6 weeks. So that there's some leeway there. And of course, we want to continue those prevention measures. This is a new vaccine. We don't want to let our guard down. Yes, we may have antibodies, but there's still that 5%, there's still that 6% on either end, depending on the vaccine, where you could possibly contract the COVID virus, but hopefully, hopefully not. So anyway, we, again, stressing those prevention measures, avoid the 3 C's, close spaces, contacts, and use masks and social distancing, stay home when you're sick, of course, and hand washing. And any questions?
Great. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, Carolyn, thank you. So some other conversations that you get in over the course of this is how come there isn't enough, or what is the scheduling, how is it all working? And Director Moskowitz I've been on 2 or 3 of his conference calls, and I think the state, we are the third largest state in the country, but we're also getting the third largest allocation from the federal government. I think that's at least how he claims that to be. And they're doing it based on population, so the larger counties are getting a larger percentage of the state's allocation. And we at Martin County, we get what a week, I mean, generally speaking?
Yeah, so generally speaking, we've been receiving for first dose allocation 1,200. 1,200 a week.
Right.
A week.
So I think if everybody, anybody listening or watching the presentation, I think if, and don't go back to the screen, but I think you roughly had 60,000 residents that were over 65, something like that?
Yeah, we have close to 51,000. I think it was like 49,000.
Okay, so 50,000.
49,732. Yeah.
And so if you put that in perspective, we're getting roughly 1,200 a week. That's really, if there was a bind in the system somewhere, that's the issue, perhaps?
Absolutely.
And so I think he also shared with us that sometime in the next month and a half, the state may get like 30,000 more or 130,000 more.
Yes, I mean, on some of the...
But not like millions, or not like 500,000 jump ups in increments. So it's
Right.
still going to take months
Absolutely.
and months
Absolutely.
to do that. He also shared with us, and I think on one of your screens, that CVS and Walgreens yet were to be determined. But apparently that seems to be the state's, at least his, I think, direction, that I think he claimed there were 2,400, 2,500 CVS, Walgreens, pharmacies around the state. And so as far as the broadest distribution scale, if you will, that still seems to be, or will be, hopefully, the broader way of getting it out, regardless of what we're doing here and so on, because not everybody, but most people have a Walgreens or a CVS in their county, or multiple, as we do here. And so that's coming, at least as I understand.
Yes, it's coming, and again, the Walmarts, the Sam's Clubs, that'll help. Other small pharmacies who are applying to become just vaccinators, that'll help as well. And as the production increases, and then we receive a larger distribution, obviously, that's what's really going to make a difference.
So if you had advice for someone who's 65 or older in terms of kind of getting in line, how would you lay that out? I mean, what would it be that you would go to the state site first, register, because you're not signing up for a day, right? Correct?
Correct.
But would you also go to Publix? Would you also go to the others and try to get on their queue as well? And whichever one pops up first?
Absolutely. I would say don't use sign up for every avenue that you can, excuse me, to be called to receive the vaccine.
And then the other interesting thing, and just for folks that are concerned, or how or why people are getting them in other counties. I've heard a fair amount of stories of people driving to the West Coast because Sarasota, for instance, has a whole bunch and we don't, or something. And there was a lot of criticism early on in that process for people out of county coming into another county and accessing it. But Director Moskowitz also pointed out that it is a federally funded program, and there can't be limits on who has access to what, where, and when, because it's coming from the federal side of the equation. I mean, is that?
That is accurate. That is correct.
So don't be hateful to people that go find something somewhere else because they have it and we don't, or whatever. It's just, I think people should use every avenue that they have available to them.
Yes. Every avenue that's out there, that's our recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hurd has questions.
Yeah, about the locations, I understand that people are desperate to get a vaccination. So I also have heard of people getting appointments in for first dose in Jacksonville, and they go there. Beware, your second dose is going to be in Jacksonville too. Don't take an appointment in Pensacola if you don't feel like going there twice in the next 28 days. Another thing is talk about transmissibility after you've had both doses.
It's still, because there's still a lot unknown about this vaccine, you still could potentially transmit the virus. That's why they're still recommending all of the mask and the mitigation strategies.
Yeah, so it's
Still unknown.
it's
Yeah.
a caution. Just because
Yes.
you've received both doesn't mean that you can't be a vector. You can be carrying the virus and infect someone else, even though you have protection. You're not providing your neighbor with protection. So don't still all the things that we're doing now. Social distancing, hand washing, masks, all those things are still very, very important to follow. And also, as we roll out new locations where vaccines will be given, you still have to be 65 or older in order to be eligible. Just because you said that the Church of God in Port Salerno vaccinated 296 people, and that's wonderful. Every one of those people was over 65.
Unless they were, say, a healthcare provider or a first responder.
Yeah.
And that's what you'll see on that summary report. You'll see the different age groups, categories, and so that's where you'll capture some of that. And also any of those that individuals that are at a higher risk and their physician feels that they need to be vaccinated would be vaccinated.
That was my question. If you have comorbidities,
Yes.
then you could go through your healthcare provider.
That's correct.
And if you're under the age of 65.
That's correct.
And I applaud the lease of the H.H. Gregg. That's really going to be imperative. When it's hot and rainy, we're not going to be able to use the car lines anymore. But I have to say that I have heard nothing but good things about the car line. It's a real efficient. There are people on both sides of the car, so two people can be vaccinated at once. It's very orderly. It's a really. You've done a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I would just echo that we have received several calls into our office that, of course, it's frustrating that people, are really trying to get appointments, and we would love to see our supply increase into Martin County. But once they do get in, we have received some great feedback that it is organized and very efficient. So nice job. I don't see any other questions. And thank you for coming and presenting.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Krista, just for staff to be ready, we're going to take, in summary, the board and committee appointments, then the public hearing, number 1, by Jennifer, and we have Kathy's presentation, which you have some presenters, I think, online. Then we'll move up departmental number 3, that we
Okay.
have some folks in the audience, and then we'll continue with the rest of the agenda.
Okay, I'll get staff down here.
Okay, and Donna Gordon, we're going to take the board and committee appointments.
Donna Gordon for administration. Mrs. Terry Dooley rescinded her application, so I'm asking that the 2 applicants, Evan Anderson for general contractor and Linda Geary for the at-large position, be reappointed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye. Seeing none opposed, motion carries 4-0. And, okay. Okay, we have public hearing number 1, fund balance adjustments that are necessary for fiscal year 2021.
Yes, Commissioners, thank you. We do this every year. We estimate what we believe our fund balances will be on an annual basis as part of our budget process. And then once the audit is completed and our books are closed from the prior fiscal year, which ended September 30th, we then go back and see, okay, what allocations do we have that we need to reappropriate to get them done. So there's certain things that we do. We look at some of the projects that didn't get done, and so we look at other requests that may have come from the board that we need to allocate funding for instance, the golf course, different things like that that have come to you throughout the last fiscal year. And then we also look at if there is no allocation in those funds, we place those monies into reserves. So and we're required to do this public hearing per Florida state statute. So we can't allocate these funds into these various funding sources without having a public hearing. So as you see, there's some that are housekeeping items, there's some that are either increasing or reducing your reserves, and then there's those specific projects that we've done. And here comes Ms. Manning. So we have, I don't know if the board has any specific questions relative to the resolutions themselves. You do have a number of resolutions. The reason for that is because we do not commingle our funds. We keep our funds very separated. And so if we have revenues that are available within a certain fund, then we put those funds back into that fund source. So as you can see, the name of the fund is at the top, and then the fund number and the org, and Ms. Manning can tell you every single dime and penny that's going into each fund.
Yes, and everything's very much detailed, so if you have specific questions, I'm here to answer. And
Anybody have any specific questions?
I do have just one, but it's a clarity question.
Sure.
The board could decide, though, if they chose, to move a category to another category by a policy decision.
Yes, sir. It would. It depends on the funding source. So if it allows us to be of more of a general nature,
If it weren't transit funds that were staying in transit, but if the actual allocation, you could move that. But if it were general fund funds,
correct.
you could move them if that's what the board wanted to do.
Correct.
Thank you. You need a motion for all of that?
Yes.
I would move approval of the, you have the staff's recommendation?
We have a staff recommendation here, which is to
Move the board adopt various budget resolutions to amend the various taxing authorities and non-taxing authority funds to allocate available monies from the adopted fund balance and other revenue sources for the FY21 budget.
perfect.
Great. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Hurd.
Just one question,
And-
Sharon, before we go. Kind of off the track, but a budget question. I'm assuming we will start CIP in April.
Yes, sir. We're doing it
So-
right now.
If we have CIP requests, do you want them now, or do you want to wait till CIP discussion?
Well, it would be good for us to have some kind of an idea so that we can factor it into our analysis.
All right.
You know, we're working obviously on taxes and tax increase possibly or other revenues. So
So,
if you have them, yes.
and I'm not trying to complicate this, but
No.
do you, prior to the actual budget hearings, do you want to have like an agenda item to ask us if there's anything we want to add to the CIP, or do you just want us to get them to you and then they'll be brought up during CIP?
it would be better to get them to us as early as
Okay,
possible.
thank you. Got it.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, we will call for public comment. If anybody would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. And request and presentation, RMP number 1, update on marine water quality and coral reef conditions. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kathy Fitzpatrick for the record. Over the last several meetings, you all have asked for updates on several things, including water quality tracking, Lake Okeechobee operations, and coral conservation. So we've kind of rolled these all into this presentation. My co-presenters are not able to be here today, so this will be a recorded presentation. But we do have them on the phone, and they'll be available to answer questions at the end. One other thing is we also have, excuse me, representatives from Orca who I'll ask to make some comments at the end. Don, if you want to hit it.
Our presentation today focuses on the marine environment and the impact of fresh water as it enters that environment. We'll be looking at the implications for water management, for coral health, and Lake Okeechobee operations. You will hear from a coral manager, a coral biologist, and a modeling expert. First up is Jamie Monty.
Hello, Martin County Commissioners. I'm Jamie Monty, Southeast Regional Administrator of DEP's Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection, and I'm very excited to share with you today the results of our offshore water quality monitoring program. Slide 2 shows that samples were collected at 3 types of sites in the Southeast Florida Coral Reef Ecosystem Conservation Area, shown in turquoise on the right-hand side. Those 3 types of sites are inlets, ocean outfalls, and coral reefs. Samples have been collected monthly since 2016 at 115 sites. Water quality samples are analyzed in the lab for 11 analytes, including 7 different types of nutrients, 2 sediments, silica, and salinity. And an analysis of the data from 2016 through 2018 indicates 3 main take-home messages. The first is on slide 3, and that is that we can see the difference between the inlet contributing areas. Not only can we see signals from the land out on the reef, but we can see differences within each of the 9 inlet contributing areas as well. The table in front of you lists the inlets from north to south, and the results show that silica is highest in the north, and this comes basically off of the earth when you work the land. And ammonia is highest in the south, and that's tied to population changes. And so this is a good thing because these are attributable to urban versus agricultural land use, and that's something that we can manage. We can see where the analytes are elevated to levels that are potentially harmful to corals. It's important to note that there currently are not regulatory thresholds for many analytes, and those that do have thresholds are likely construction project related and not background or chronic regulatory thresholds. So we compared our data to the thresholds that are published in the literature by Dr. Brian LaPointe, and he deemed them harmful to corals. So again, they're biological, not regulatory. So on the left-hand side, you see red triangles that represent the chronic average conditions in bottom waters for soluble reactive phosphorus. And for most reef sites in this study area, phosphorus levels do not exceed the published threshold values, above which harm to corals would be expected. And the exceptions to this are the ones that are circled in black, the red dots and triangles. And so those are obviously at St. Lucie Inlet at the northernmost extension of the ecosystem conservation area, and Government Cut at the southernmost extension of the ECA. And then the graph on the right, the map on the right, indicates dissolved inorganic nitrogen. And basically you can see that any amount higher than the smallest shown, which is the light pink triangles, may be harmful to corals. So essentially, almost all of the corals throughout the ecosystem conservation area might be negatively impacted by nitrogen, which is an indication of wastewater, either septic or outfalls. And you can see the darkest of the red triangles and red dots, again, are at the northernmost extension of the ECA at the St. Lucie Inlet, and the southernmost extension at Government Cut. Our third take-home point, which is that comparison to our benthic monitoring program can shed some light on the reef health. Our analysis showed that an increase in certain analytes, such as nutrients, correlate with a decrease in hard coral. And that same increase in certain analytes, such as nutrients, correlates with an increase in algae. So keep in mind that algae grows quicker than corals, and so when algae settles on a reef and grows, it can take up the space that corals might otherwise be able to grow in. Slide 6 discusses why all of this matters and what we can do with the information that we have. We actually have contractors that are currently comparing our water quality data set with stony coral tissue loss disease data to look for correlations that may indicate where water quality is more detrimental to reef health because of the disease. We are also in the process of developing an ECA or coral-specific water quality regulatory thresholds, so doing the science background to eventually determine how much of each analyte, such as nitrogen or phosphorus, could be allowed while still maintaining coral health. And finally, we can use this data to detect changes after management actions are implemented. So things like, how does water quality change after the ocean outfalls are shut down in 2025? Or how does the water quality change and the reef health hopefully increase after some septic to sewer conversions are completed? This is a powerful data set that I went through very briefly this afternoon, but it could be used to establish some baseline appropriate water quality standards that can protect corals, as well as baseline for watershed management and land-based sources of pollution reduction projects. There are some possible explanations for some of the differences that we're seeing in the different site types and between the different inlets. And some of my partners, Josh and John, are going to begin to connect those dots with their presentations.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Joshua Voss. I'm the Executive Director of the Cooperative Institute for Ocean Exploration Research and Technology, as well as an Associate Research Professor at Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute at Florida Atlantic University. Thank you all very much for taking the time to listen and learn a bit about the coral reef research that we've been undertaking in Martin County for over a decade now. I'm going to be speaking today about a project that is currently focused on advancing coral research and resilience on Southeast Florida coral reefs in general, but I'll be focusing my comments today on the work we've been doing in Martin County, specifically at St. Lucie Reef. Lucie Reef is a really interesting location, both biologically and geologically. It lies just south of St. Lucie Inlet, and this is a particularly interesting location where both tropical and temperate species commingle and create amazing biodiversity. So the area bounded by the state park, shown here with black lines, includes a diverse number of benthic habitats, including coral reefs, and these have had historically extremely high biodiversity relative to other locations in the region. For example, more than 250 species of fish have been recorded here, and this is really the northern terminus along the Florida coastline for several hard coral species, and 24 coral species are located here, including previously the endangered mountainous star coral was found in this region as well, or Orbicella faveolata. I've shown an outline of where we've been conducting research activities for the past several years. And you'll notice that 4 of those sites are located at St. Lucie Reef in Martin County. This is an area that unfortunately has had really significant impacts from both coral disease and Hurricane Irma in the past 3 to 4 years. Of Hurricane Irma, subsequent discharges from the estuary system thereafter, as well as stony coral tissue loss disease, have resulted in a combined roughly 80% loss of adult corals in the St. Lucie Reef region. The declines that we've observed have been coincident with freshwater releases and major rainfall events, including hurricanes within the St. Lucie Estuary Basin. And so understanding how these events impact corals is critical to maintaining this resource. St. Lucie Reef is shown in blue, and just after Hurricane Irma in November 2017 is when we saw the highest incidence of stony coral tissue loss disease on the reef. Nearly 25% of the corals that were present demonstrated signs consistent with SCTLD. Wanted to just give a summary as well as some recommendations moving forward. First, really we've seen a combination of devastating coral disease, hurricane, and freshwater discharge impacts at St. Lucie Reef. If you look at the time series over to the right, from June 2017, we saw large, vibrant, healthy colonies like this greater star coral, upwards of 1 meter in size. By October of 2017, disease was quite apparent, and by March of 2018, this colony had died completely. Faced with the amount of destruction we were seeing and the amount of loss we were seeing on this reef, as well as on other reefs throughout Florida, we really wanted to try to come up with a way where we could help to preserve and protect some of the reefs that are being exposed to the disease incidents throughout Florida and elsewhere throughout the Caribbean. And through collaborative partnerships and some research that's gone on in my lab, we've been able to demonstrate that antibiotic treatments with amoxicillin are more than 95% effective in treating disease-affected corals, and that this is an intervention technique that is not only highly effective, but can be used to continue to protect corals in our region, including St. Lucie Reef. I think to quantify the impacts of freshwater discharge impacts on St. Lucie Reef and the corals that are there, we need a coordinated combination of both experiments, monitoring in the field, and modeling efforts to understand the system as a whole. Finally, our next steps will be doing a 3D mapping of all corals at St. Lucie Reef. We'll be undertaking a new restoration test project, including sites at St. Lucie Reef. We're looking at trying to understand why certain corals are resistant or resilient to disease. And then we have a number of new directions targeted at antibiotic resistance, understanding coral salinity thresholds, and understanding what role nutrients may play in exacerbating the disease. Thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I welcome any feedback or questions you may have. You can contact me here below. Thank you for all your efforts to help safeguard Martin County and its natural resources.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is John Ramsey. I'm a Principal Coastal Engineer for Applied Coastal Research and Engineering. For approximately the last 20 years, I've been assisting the county with issues related to the inlet and the estuary, ranging from sediment transport related processes through water quality concerns. I'm going to be building on what Jamie and Josh had talked about. Specifically, I'm going to be focused on freshwater impacts as they are measured offshore of St. Lucie Inlet and across the reef system, primarily south of the inlet. As you see on this map, we have the hard bottom shown with the green shading. There's a full range of 12 stations. Those are the numbers shown in white, where NOAA and DEP have actually measured monthly samples since approximately 2016. I'm also going to be talking a little bit later about some continuous measurements that were done more recently by the county. One of the things that I want to focus on is some of the high flow events, the high freshwater inflow events, both from the watershed as well as from Lake Okeechobee that occurred over the time period of 2017 and 2018. From the monthly measurement data, we have salinity measurements both at the top and the bottom. And it should be understood that at the top, we expect the salinity levels to be lower because freshwater tends to be lighter and stay on top. One of the things we see from an example measurement station, and that's pointed with the arrow, you can see where the station is on the right figure. The left figure shows a full range of both the measurements as well as the freshwater inflow. On the top are the salinity measurements. And one of the things we see is this sawtooth plot with a red shaded area below and white above. That red shaded area indicates impacts to the coral. So if the salinity drops into that level, into that shaded area, we definitely have impacts to the coral, which could be either just harm, but it also could be destruction of the coral resources offshore. And so what we can see is that for many time periods, and again, this ranges from 2016 to present, for many time periods, we see that the salinity level drops to a point where we are having impacts to the corals offshore. And if you look at the bottom plot, the bottom subplot, we see that the freshwater inflow, as the freshwater inflow increases to the estuary, that's when we have the dominant impacts of salinity offshore and the harm that is created. We see these both in the 2017 and 2018 time period when we had high freshwater inflow events. As well as the longer term measurements of monthly data, we also have data more recently collected in the end of 2020 where we actually have continuous measurements. And again, the shaded area shows the time period when we have harm. The red plot shows the salinity level, and you can see when the freshwater inflow shown with the black line is relatively low, we have high salinities offshore. As the freshwater increases, we can see a direct correlation between the drop in salinity offshore, and in this case, the salinity level drops to an extremely low level of below 10 parts per thousand, which is very brackish and very harmful to the coral resources offshore. And it should be noted that this station is actually located 2 miles south of the inlet. So with some of the modeling tools we've developed over the years, specifically for the sediment transport analysis, we can actually span these tools into looking at the data sets related to salinity and how salinity is altered through freshwater inflow. And we can actually look at this for a full range of conditions that are experienced by the estuary. This model simulation illustrates freshwater inflow as it's increasing over an approximately 2-week period, where the dark blues show the offshore conditions of salinity that are very high, and we see the lower salinity water migrating towards the entrance over that time period when we see an increase in freshwater inflow. So in summary, the data clearly indicates that there's a direct link between freshwater discharge and the reduction in offshore salinity that is damaging to the coral resources. There's also no doubt that releases from Lake Okeechobee exacerbate and prolong damaging conditions within the estuary and offshore waters. This is shown again with the series of data that's available. Our ongoing efforts are aimed at developing predictive tools that quantify impacts of freshwater releases on corals for a full range of conditions.
I want to thank Jamie, Josh, and John for their commitment to better understanding underlying conditions and the drivers that impact our ecosystem, with an eye towards a more effective management. As these professionals come together, we've begun to see a more complete picture of how our water environment is functioning. A wide array of data is being collected in Martin County's coastal environment on a long-term basis by multiple parties. This map shows you how it all comes together. We've developed a very comprehensive monitoring network of offshore conditions that has been developed in partnership with all of these other agencies. It was interesting that in October of 2020, when we were in the middle of LOSUM discussions that focused on impacts of large freshwater discharges onto nearby coral reefs, we also found out that the Corps was planning to start up forced discharges from Lake Okeechobee once again. It seemed obvious that if we could get instruments out on the reef in time, the data we could collect showing the impacts of these releases would be very important. Luckily, our local partners agreed, and within days we had obtained loaned instrumentation and installed the conductivity meters, which measure salinity, out on our reefs. I need to stop here for just a moment to recognize Orca and Harbor Branch Oceanographic, because without their immediate response, we never could have achieved this goal. And in this map, you can see the conductivity meter as it's overlaid with all the other data collection efforts. The record we are collecting will allow us to document the impacts of these forced discharges on our local marine environment. And also, going back to Jamie's presentation, we know that when salinity drops because of the influx of fresh water, there are other constituents coming along with it. We hope that with the data collection funded here and by an upcoming effort funded by EPA, we will be able to document exactly what that looks like. I hope this presentation has shown that all the monitoring and data analysis that has been going on for separate projects, whether they're estuarine water quality, Lake Okeechobee management, inlet and beach management, and coral conservation, are coming together, linked by the water that connects them and the ecosystem it supports. We are now able to bring that modeling and analysis to support water quality improvement efforts and expand upon our previous work. The supporting work done by other agencies increases the value of our data and improves our ability to develop a true ecosystem management viewpoint. NOAA recognized the importance of designated habitat for their threatened and endangered coral species. We have submitted a letter in support of this designation which, if established, would add an additional consideration as we develop a new lake management strategy and will increase the importance of improving the water quality coming out through St. Lucie Inlet. Given the rapid decline of our ecosystems, the collaborative effort from all the agencies and multiple disciplines discussed in this presentation and listed on this slide is essential for us to get the comprehensive, system-wide understanding so that we can focus our efforts where they will make the most gains and buy us time while we seek to resolve compounding issues. I want to thank you for your attention and open this up for questions.
And if I could, I would like to see if we could get either Edie Witter or Warren Falls from Orca to just say a few words, because we really do owe them quite a debt for their incredibly rapid response. And I know they said there was a bit of a time delay, so Edie or Warren, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, please state your name for the record.
Dr. Edie Witter. I'm CEO and Senior Scientist at the Ocean Research and Conservation Association.
Do you have some comments?
Yes, I just want to, first of all, commend Kathy and the team for a really excellent presentation and just emphasize how important it is to have this kind of data, because I frankly was surprised even at how much of that fresh water was reaching down to the reefs. You have to see it to believe it, because fresh water usually sits on top of salt water, and that's been an argument made that the reefs couldn't possibly be being affected. Well, clearly they are, dramatically so, and it has just enormous impacts for the health of the reef and the health of our local ecosystems. So I think, being able to collect this data and then show it to the public and the policymakers is absolutely essential. And once again, thanks, Kathy, and thank you to the Martin County Commission for your continued devotion to protecting our local ecosystems and your support of Orca.
Thanks a lot, Edie.
Thank you.
And we also have John Ramsey, who you saw in the presentation. He's done the modeling work for the county. And we have Joanna Walzak from DEP's Coral Program. If you all have any questions, Joshua is teaching a class right now, I believe, so he could not be with us. But
Okay, Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, this is very interesting information. I think it's going to help us a lot. So if there were freshwater discharges out of the St. Lucie Inlet that were devoid of nutrient pollutants, would it kill the reefs?
it could. I mean, it all has to do with intensity and duration. A coral will react to low salinity in kind of, it will react, and it will not feel good, and it will feel worse, and if you don't let it recoup, then yes, it could die. And I mean, causation or correlation is not causation, we know that, but as Dr. Voss said, we had the endangered Orbicella favellata on the reef, and it's not there anymore. But this is part of the area that NOAA has proposed to designate as critical habitat for this endangered species.
Okay, so that brings up another question, and this would probably be for Dr. Voss, but someone else will be able to answer it too. So it's also it's amazing to me that the antibiotic treatment, the amoxicillin, is 95% effective in treating the disease. Do we get full recovery?
Joanna, if you're there, I will pass this one to you.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So unfortunately, and fortunately, we have high success rates using that particular treatment. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that we know what the actual pathogen or issue is that is the underlying cause for the disease to be existing. It is something we're continuing to explore. Although antibiotics are often associated with treating bacteria, this particular antibiotic is broad spectrum and treats viruses, bacteria, and a whole host of other things. And so it does give us a lot of promise that at least this is treatable. And so we are continuing to work on developing new treatment tools like probiotics that can take and scale up our efforts to treat these soils from individual lesion treatments to full colony treatments.
And how do you treat it, with injections? Okay.
Apologies, I muted myself unintentionally. It is a paste. Just like we put antibiotic paste on our skin, it's a very similar treatment.
Wow. Thank you.
The probiotics, absolutely. The probiotics will be treated with very similar manner, either as a paste or by placing, and it sounds a little funny, but by placing a large bag over the colony and releasing the probiotics directly onto the colony in the water surrounding it. We're already doing environmental tests to make sure that all of this is approved in regulatory standards.
Thanks.
And you can imagine the work effort that goes into this, because it takes divers out there with this paste, pressing it into the reef along the margins of the disease on each and every coral head to make this happen. But Joanna has amassed an army of divers out there, and they are working feverishly.
Well, an 80% loss is it's an emergency. Thanks.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, Kathy and all the team, both on the phone and others that have participated in this, thank you, because without your amazing support and continued support, we wouldn't be where we are today. I think it's important that this is probably, I think of all the presentations I've seen, Kathy, by far from being concise, but also being to the point, and now we're starting to finally see the data show up that you all worked so hard to get funding for years ago that we knew at some point in time would benefit us in the discussion relative to making our case. And that's what I just saw, which was fantastic. So I hope we can this, what you just did, because honestly, it was great. I mean, it was very well concise. Your three people are fantastic to begin with, but they did an awesome job presenting it. So I think for the legislature and both for the congressional members to see, sort of this canned thing, like here's really what's happening, and here's 6 or so years worth of work that has built up to this point, to be able to share with you all what we know is happening, or what we thought we knew was happening, but now we can share with you what we know is happening. Fantastic. Joanna, good morning. I know you probably can't tell us what you need next, so maybe somebody else on the phone can. I know we were successful last year in getting funds allocated to DEP through the legislature and the governor to help us in the next wave of effort. I think it might be helpful to at least understand where we are with that funding. Second to that, we came this close, like the size of a pinhead close in December with the last Congress to getting the Coral Reef Reauthorization Act, and I know that's not the official name of it all, but it's how I remember it, passed, and we are so incredibly fortunate to have former staff member from Senator Rubio's office in the DEP office of Washington helping us on that side, Wes Brooks, who really helped us get language, I think, from all of the people that we've been working with all these years, incorporated into the Reauthorization Act established. So, Joanna, if you could pass along again our thanks to Wes up there doing his work. I guess so. My question is there anything we need to be doing next? I know Washington these days is a little bit different in terms of how you get to Washington and deal with Washington, because it's just entirely different than it used to be. But what should we be doing next? And I don't mean to keep singling out Joanna. Maybe I should ask Kathy, because Kathy can probably answer that, and Joanna maybe can't. So.
Well, I can fill in some of the blanks. I do know that in Washington, both in the House and the Senate, bills have been introduced again for the Resilient Reefs. It's 3 R's. I can't remember the other, but
that's why I say
that legislation has been reintroduced, and it was introduced I would be remiss without noting that it was co-introduced by Representatives Soto and Mast. So it is a bipartisan bill this time, which was one of the sticking points last time, so hopefully that will help some.
And we had bipartisan, almost unanimous support coming out of the Senate.
Right, so we're certainly hopeful there. As some of you may know, we have been working with both Joanna's shop and FWC, encouraging them to work together to establish a management plan for the ecosystem conservation area, the box that we drew around the state resources north of Biscayne Bay, where the corals had never been acknowledged before. So we were successful in drawing the box a couple of years ago, but there is no real management teeth to go with that or a plan. So there have been a series of public workshops. FWC is running another one right now, and we're hopeful that at the culmination of that we'll be able to come to some consensus and be able to move management strategies forward so that we can more aggressively address the issues that we see all too plainly on our reefs. And I mean, as for funding in the coming year, I think that's anybody's guess right now. I know that there has been a large request made by the governor for kind of a resilience overall, which the coral program is a part of. But you know how that will shake out. I do know in this last year that we were very successful in getting funds, and for a number of reasons, most of those funds have been directed down at Biscayne Bay, where they've been having real issues. And so, you know, we were a little more hopeful to get a little more money up here. You know, they had a program in place, and they're implementing that. So we're hoping that next year we'll get a little bit more money up towards the north. And Joanna, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add in from your position on anything that's happening or things that I may not be aware of that is going on.
Thanks, Kathy, and thank you, Commissioner Smith. Again, just wanted to reiterate my appreciation for this board, and especially to our coral champions, Commissioner Smith and Kathy Fitzpatrick, and even your tourism folks, Narissa. You guys have absolutely been coral champions for all of Florida's coral reef, not just Martin County, but especially Martin County. And I want to really commend the leadership that has come from you all in helping us push forward not just these local issues, but state and national issues as well. Commissioner, you mentioned the Restoring Resilient Reefs Act. That is absolutely a high priority for next steps. Getting that passed, as it is the only U.S. coral reef-related legislation. It is the only federal money that comes to jurisdictional management agencies for directed coral reef management. Getting that reauthorized to include emergency response mechanisms, increased funding, and a wealth of other authorities is absolutely our highest priority at the national level, and we really thank you for your continued support on that.
Joanna, is there anything else we should be actively doing? This is Doug.
Kathy, I think, nailed it on the head in terms of continuing to support all of the local management issues, especially all of the amazing work that is being done by the DEP Coral Reef Conservation Program and pulling together the management for these northern reefs. One point, just so that you all are aware, back in October, the leadership of DEP created a brand new coral-specific program that I've been asked to helm. It's called a Coral Protection and Restoration Program, and it is specifically looking at driving more of these large-scale water quality and coral reef ecosystem restoration priorities to make sure that we're looking at these systems holistically. And I think the presentation that you heard earlier on behalf of this amazing partnership is a shining example of what we're hoping to do and replicate across all of Florida's coral reefs. And so continuing to be a model and help show others and work in that regional spirit to really affect
significant change when uniting all of these pieces is really all I can ask of you all. And again, I continue to thank you for your leadership there.
Thanks, Joanna.
Great. Well, thank you. And I would just echo some of the sentiments that were shared earlier from my fellow commissioners Smith and Hurd, and thank our partners on the line for joining us today and all the work that you've done thus far. So thank you, Kathy. Okay, with that, we are required to take a closed captioning break for 10 minutes. So we will, that normally occurs at 10:30. We're going to take that right now at 10:43 and come back at 10:55 in 10 minutes. And that's actually 12 minutes. But so we will take a brief recess and see you at 10:55. And we will take the item departmental number 3, livestock rescue request for proposal.
Okay, you're on.
Okay. Welcome back to our February 16th meeting. And we are going to move up today, departmental number 3, livestock rescue request for proposal, presented by Mr. Stokas.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. George Stokas, Assistant County Administrator for the record. We are here before you today to discuss a request for proposal that was put out for a livestock rescue and are seeking further direction. On September 2nd of 2020, the county issued an RFP, or request for proposal, for the rescue and rehabilitation and adoption of services for livestock. We did this in cooperation with local law enforcement. It had a need approximately 5 years ago. In the RFP, the primary need was identified for horses, but we did include other livestock to try and close the gap between domesticated animals, which are handled by the Humane Society, wild animals, which are handled by the Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital, as well as then what we would do with livestock or bovine and equine horses. The goal of the program was to reduce euthanasia for livestock, educate livestock owners for the best management practices, and promote shelter and adoption of these animals. With the RFP, we sent 50 service providers were notified. 4 service providers requested RFP information. However, only one proposer responded, and that was Equine Rescue and Adoption Foundation. Just some points to note out in their proposal. That was provided by ERAF at the time. The direct rescue cost per horse for a 1-year average averages a cost of $8,580 per year per their proposal. That number may have changed due to it being about a year later. However, the overall estimated cost to provide all the services in the RFP and the pilot program described in the request for proposal was given a price back of $100,000 per year. Just to point out, in talking with the Martin County Sheriff's Department, they have advised staff that they have not dropped off any horses or livestock in the past 3 years. However, they did indicate that if the facility were available, they would utilize the service if the need existed. And ultimately, the reason why staff is before you today is based on recommended action is we would like to know if the board wants to engage into a rescue, rehabilitation, and adoption service for livestock. And if so, we would recommend that the board move to direct staff to negotiate with ERAF to provide a livestock rescue service as outlined in the RFP 2020-3251 for Martin County Livestock pursuant to the board direction, and then we would return back to the board with an agenda item for your consideration of a contract and a budget resolution for funding. Staff is looking for further direction. Do we want to move forward in a similar manner as we do with the Humane Society and the Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital? And with that, Madam Chair, that's pretty much my presentation. I'm more than happy to take any questions and would like some direction.
Okay, well, it looks like we have some questions. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stokas, thank you. To give a brief history on how we've arrived at today, when we were doing our grants and aids last year, I guess, I had recommended that EREF be included in the process for grants and aids. And those people that are listening that are not familiar, grants and aids are a certain amount of funds set aside by the county across all different kind of not-for-profits, from Volunteers in Medicine to House of Hope and all these different organizations that receive funding through taxpayer dollars. And there were criteria in place about organizations that needed to have a certain amount of time and, based in Martin County and what they were doing. We also, to round out the information, commissioners have discretionary district funds, MSTU funds in their districts that they can use for different opportunities that might arise within their specific districts. Normally, that discretion allows our colleagues to make those determinations, and we have. Different folks have different priorities, different needs per district. I had been utilizing some of my district funds after learning about what's been taking place at EREF and the work that they've done. I know that Mr. Stokas had said that the sheriff had mentioned that he hadn't taken in haven't brought any horses there in the last couple of years. But what is important to know is that in the years before that, one time they brought 13 horses in, I believe 12 horses and one donkey that were seized. There's other times when they've brought 10 in at a time. I've asked Denise LeClaire Robbins to come, who is the president of that board of directors, to not only, I know that they've, if EREF has invited all of my colleagues to come and tour the facility, but I think it goes beyond their services and what impact they have on the community, especially in Palm City for equine. I'd like Ms. LeClaire Robbins to have an opportunity to just sort of give you more of an understanding of what's happening there. But before she does, I'd also like to say that I have used my district funds in the past for worthwhile programs at the Humane Society, at the Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital, at Domino's Cat Rescue, at Caring Field Felines, and also at Big Dog Ranch Rescue. So I don't know if it just happens to be that all of these organizations are based in Palm City in District 5, because it's the most rural, along with District 3. It's more of our rural area of the county. But I do know that very worthwhile, the Humane Society has a contract with the county. I remember when I was in office the first time, the Humane Society would come on Grants and AIDS Day, which is basically everyone shows up with their hat in their hand and tries to make a presentation to have the commissioners utilize some percentage of our grants and aids budget for their worthwhile causes. I had recommended back then that the Humane Society was offering more of a service to the county than a not-for-profit that was just doing someone, some good work for the county. And we did, at the time, thankfully, switch them over to become more of a contract than just showing up each year. And then same with the Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital that handles, mostly birds and things like that. They're doing remarkable work. And every time these organizations, and Dan Martinelli, who was their leader for such a long, long time, who has since passed away, and I know that organization still does remarkable work, but we've also switched them where we've increased their numbers. And we're very fortunate in our community. The Humane Society is a state mandate, but the Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital and EREF, we're just fortunate to have these. And some people might not, correlate, the horses and things like that. I'd like Denise to share a little bit about some of the experiences that have been happening out there.
Well, Commissioner Campy, so is Denise doing public comment, or what is your anticipation?
She does. I think it requires a little bit more than 3 minutes. She is the applicant in this RFP proposal. It's not just a member. Her other folks are members of the public, but she is the applicant in a request for proposal.
Well, I wasn't prepared for an applicant's presentation. I will give you longer than 3 minutes, but please try to be as, sum it up as much as
First,
possible.
thank you very much for having us.
And please state your name for the record, and also fill out a public comment card.
Okay. My name is Denise LeClaire Robbins. I'm president of the board of directors of Equine Rescue and Adoption Foundation. We've been taking Martin County horses for the 18 years that we've been in Martin County out of the 20 years that we've been in existence, and not gotten any funds whatsoever. We raise our funds by grants, family foundations, and obviously fundraising abilities, different events that we have. We work very closely with our sheriff's department. I'm very sad that John Barca has retired. And so far no one has filled his position. And I think that maybe the commissioners are not aware of the fact that most of our horses do not come through the sheriff's department. They only come through the sheriff's department when the sheriff calls us and they're actually going to legally seize those horses. So that's in the big, huge groups normally. John Barca would call us, call myself or our barn manager, Nancy, who is also back here, and he would say, can you please come over to this street? We've got a donkey, we've got a mule, we've got horses that are in tough shape, can you take them? And we would just come over and take them, and therefore they didn't become like a sheriff seizure legally, go through their books. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's the relationship that we've had with John Barca. In the last 3 years, John would just call us and we'd just go over to wherever we have to go over and pick up the animal and bring the animal back. So that's what we've done. But you have to understand that the Martin County residents will call us because we have been educating our county and letting them know that we are here for them, and we will take their horses if they need help, or we'll provide help to them. For instance, that we try to help homeowners keep their horses in their fields and their paddocks by giving them hay, by giving them grain, and we raise money in order to do that, or apply for a grant from the ASPCA to give hay to people so that they can keep their horses in their homes. But if that does not work, then we will take the horses. So they come from the residents themselves. Perhaps the horse owner died and the family doesn't want to have a horse anymore. Perhaps they've lost their jobs and they can't afford to keep their horses anymore. There's a variety of reasons. But they don't always come through the Sheriff's Department.
May I ask her a couple of questions? Thank you, Ms. Robbins. Can you tell us about, other than the rescuing of the horses, you do quite a bit more out there that benefits the community. Can you speak to veterans and children with special needs?
I sure can. So we are involved in an autistic children's program. My personal horse is the autistic children's program horse because he's a sweet old man. And it's just amazing to see how these children react and not react when they're on a horse. We have recently started a pilot program. It kicked off January 1st. We just graduated our first, actually 2 groups of veterans. We have a veterans equine assisted therapy program now. We have a program director, a licensed mental health counselor, and we have an equine specialist who's PASS certified. And so now we have our equine therapy program for our veterans. So we're very thrilled. As a matter of fact, our program director was here, but she had to go meet with Brian Mast and a group of the Korean War veterans who are going to probably be enrolled in our program next. And there is no charge to them whatsoever. We also take our horses out to schools. We host, we take the horses out to assisted living facilities. Horses are very healing. We have a little mini named Boogie who is our ambassador, and he does an absolutely awesome job.
Thank you. The reason you are here is originally when I was requesting that you be added, the organization be added into our grants and aids, one of the commissioners, Commissioner Jenkins, rightfully so, had concern that maybe giving you a blanket dollar amount was not necessarily the right strategy. It should have been more of a per horse. Every time you had taken in a horse, that the county should participate in something like that. I know that that is a legitimate option. It really designs, if you're taking a horse in that's Martin County specific, that, as Mr. Stoka said, there's a certain dollar amount to that. My concern is that we have no idea, especially now under the new set of circumstances with the pandemic and how people's finances, families and people that used to have nothing but money and could afford these horses now might have fallen on difficult times. And the first thing I'm going to give up is the expensive upkeep of horses. So there's a possibility that you could, like in the past, get 13 or 10 or 8 or whatever. I'm not trying to exaggerate the numbers, but those are historic numbers. The sheriff brought you 13, 12 horses and a donkey at one point a couple years ago, correct?
Correct. When they call us formally, it's usually for large groups.
Right, because he doesn't get involved in a horse here and a horse there. He's coming in for really dramatic kind of situations.
But BARCA does. If BARCA is called, if the Sheriff's Department is called by whoever on a complaint, he'll go out there, but he will typically just say, okay, tell the owner, what do you want to do with this? Do you really want to have us prosecute you? So typically the owners will say, of course not.
Voluntary.
And they call him, John will call us and say, can you come over and pick them up? And we say, of course we can. So, and that's what we do.
And recently you took in some horses from Okeechobee County, correct?
We did, and I want to give you the bill that we sent them because we are not taking horses from other counties and rehabbing them at no cost or funds that we have to raise. So
She
George, do you want
has a hand. It's just an invoice from Okeechobee County.
We billed We took 4 horses from them on an emergency basis, and one died, I'm going to say just a couple of hours after it got to our property. It was in that bad a shape. So the other 3 horses, it took us a year to rehab them, and we presented them with a bill of over $30,000. Actually, the amount is $30,942.79, which were our actual costs. We broke them down, and that's direct horse costs. That is the vet, feed, and their farrier and their dental. And mind you that all the services that come to us, because we are a nonprofit, are discounted by those various vendors. So the average person is not going to get the same discount that we get.
Correct.
And that's the wonderful thing that our vendors do for us.
You said rehab. When you take these horses in, the ultimate goal is the only time you're taking a horse and having to euthanize it is if it just cannot live a healthy life. You have certain horses, though, that can't ever be adopted, so you just keep them on the property, correct? How many?
We don't believe in euthanizing a horse just because they're a little older or they're sick. We try to give them every opportunity to rehab and live out their lives. Sometimes we're able to, and our goal is to adopt them out as companion animals to other horses or goats or even other livestock. So yes, but we do have some elders, some seniors on our property that will live their lives out with us.
Thank you. Can you give me an idea of the scope of services? How many horses did you originally, when this organization started, I remember you told me you were expecting to have about a dozen horses.
Well, when we moved from Markle Street to Martin Highway, we had 14 horses. We very quickly in the first year doubled it, and it went up. We were as high as 62 horses. We are now down to 29 horses.
Okay. And what do you do with the horses when they get all better and they're rehabbed?
We adopt them out.
Yeah. And so how many horses have you adopted out since you've started?
Oh gosh, maybe 350, 375 horses. I can get you that exact figure.
No, but obviously it's much more difficult to have someone come in to adopt a horse than it would be to adopt a puppy or a kitten, because it's a real major financial and time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so our figures have now changed. It's not $8,000 to rehab a horse anymore. And of course it depends on the condition of the horse, because some are in very bad shape and some are in not so bad shape, but it's approximately $16,000 a year.
Thank you. And my last comment and question, Madam Chair. The reason you're here today is that when you came for the grants and aids, it was suggested that maybe this should be more of an appropriate process through the bid for proposal or the request for proposal, the RFP. And as Mr. Stokes said, the county staff did a remarkable job, by the way, because this is not a typical kind of situation. And then we expanded it from just horses to livestock. I know we were talking about chattel, and Mr. Stokes really did a remarkable job. I know that when we pressed him to create the funding, the proposal structure, and Ms. Brotherton as well, it's not something that they've done a lot of, but I know that they crafted a really strong proposal. I was able to see it before the cone came into place. It says here that 50 people were notified, 4 had asked for the information, and you were the only one. EREF was the only one that submitted. And I think you did what the county asked you to do as a proposer. The staff did what the commission asked them to do. And I was asking questions of staff recently, because that was in September of last year, and now we're in February of this year, and I was just wondering what's going on. You've continued to take horses in weekly, monthly, and I'm just wanted to know from my colleagues, because I had asked staff, are we getting ready to do this? And he's not allowed to tell me what my colleagues are thinking, but he just kept saying that maybe we needed to have another agenda item. So I appreciate that we would have another agenda item. I think that this falls in line with what the Humane Society offers our community, what Treasure Coast Wildlife offers our community. I think the numbers that you're asking for are reasonable. I think that the idea today is to have staff renegotiate with you as an organization to see how it would be. My concern is, and I know you're very modest, but you have personally put up a tremendous amount of money to create the facility that you have and to handle the situation that you have out there. You work with 75 volunteers, just a few paid staff, because you can't just bring anybody in to handle horses. It can also be dangerous, so you need to have the appropriate people. So I don't understand what the hesitation is, to be honest, that this is a remarkable opportunity that we have, and if we sit back and do nothing or not participate, and the organization were to fold, where do we go with these horses? When people have a pelican or an eagle or a sand crane, everyone is thrilled that we can bring them. We have a place to bring them. And so I can't imagine that we would let this opportunity fail and close up. And when people say, well, we don't need it, they can send them to Palm Beach. Is Palm Beach County taking horses from other counties? You'd have to say it out loud.
No, they do not.
Okay, thank you.
There is
So
no county around us that takes horses from
so
different counties.
I would make a motion that we ask staff to negotiate with EREF to finalize this RFP that we had put into place in September. Thank you very much.
I have some questions, and Ms. Krista has her light on.
For clarification purposes, this invoice is not to the county, it's to the animal owner itself. It looks like
No, it is to the sheriff's department whom we billed. It's a court case
that's not what this says. When I look up Mr. Travis, he was.
He is the court case. He's the owner. It's still wrapped up in court, and he actually is still in jail. So that court case is still going on, but Okeechobee County has to pay, Animal Care has to pay for what we did for those horses.
Have they paid it?
Yes, they have. They came with a
Well,
check and they
I can
picked up
verify
the
that
horses.
too.
yeah.
And then the second point I wanted to make was that Commissioner Jenkins did not postpone this item because it was going to come back to the board. And when it does, he wanted to be part of that conversation. So I just wanted to get that on the record.
Well, I would have, just to answer that question, Madam Chair, I didn't realize Commissioner Jenkins wasn't going to be here until this morning when I was told. I might have, since I was the one requesting this agenda item coming forward, I would have appreciated. I know he is an equestrian himself. I would have preferred to obviously have the 5 of us here. But, you know, if we're asking staff to negotiate with EREF based on a bid proposal, I don't understand how you do a request for proposal, we go through the entire process, it's a legitimate process, and then it just stops. That's all I'm asking.
I have a couple questions for Mr. Stokas, and I will say, Denise, I've had a chance to tour your facility. It's a wonderful thing that your organization does. I certainly would agree with that. I grew up riding horses, most of my young adult life. So I certainly appreciate what you do. Mr. Stokas, and Commissioner Campy, you talked about the RFP process. Not only are we normally not involved in the RFP process, I didn't see the RFP, nor would, do we take or give input on the RFP. So I have some questions. So it was brought into livestock. So, Mr. Stokas, that includes hogs, and are we proposing that we're going to rescue hogs?
The intent of the RFP was directed based on our discussions with law enforcement to close the loop between animals that are considered domesticated animals like dogs, cats, bunnies, pigs that are used as pets. I think they call them pot-bellied pigs. And then the wildlife component, which is, a raccoon gets hit by a car or a sandhill crane. And we broadened the RFP to include livestock because at the time, the deputies involved had nowhere to, they had a need to bring cows, pigs, animals that were being, farm animal or livestock to an area so that they could be handled with. And that was the intent of the RFP, was to create a one-stop type of drop-off place for those farm animals, including even chickens. The RFP is pretty broad to allow the Sheriff's Department to have a tool to drop animals off. That's how we wrote it.
I just can't see, taking tax dollars from one individual and then rescuing a hog and using those tax dollars. There's got to be some personal responsibility if you buy a chicken or if you buy a hog or if you, and certainly, if you buy a horse. I think what you do is a wonderful thing. There's a need for it. But this is a line, that, and Commissioner Canby, you said, what's the hesitation? The hesitation is we also have to have personal responsibilities, and I have to be a steward of your tax dollars. So I think that there's certainly a very appropriate place for what you do. But you don't take pigs and sheep, or do you?
We have taken pigs for the Martin County Sheriff's Department, yes, and we have recently received 2 grants from 2 family foundations. And if you go by our facility, you'll see that there's been a tremendous clearing, and we're preparing to have large paddocks to hold this livestock. So on our community center side, which is also where our therapy ring is.
Limit what you can do, for your very important original mission of equine when you start taking all these other livestock animals?
Well, we wouldn't be keeping the livestock. Livestock is cows and sheep and goats and whatever are very different than horses. And so we have other resources. We may become like a temporary holding area until we can locate various farmers who would like to take these animals, depending upon what's wrong with them. Yes, so.
And we had here this morning FFA. So 4-H and FFA and IFAS have long been doing a lot. The Farm Bureau working with owners, for livestock, educating them and taking on the livestock. I just don't understand why we have this broad definition of livestock in here, and I can't see keeping that in there and then having this language, force us basically to rescue a hog.
Well, Madam Chair, we're, as staff, are more than happy to, when we put it out to the public, we use a little bit of a broader scope, but if the board would like to direct us to, we can absolutely negotiate with the other party to just focus on equine, if that's what the board desires to do. My understanding is the RFP can be pared down, it cannot be expanded.
Madam Chair, to clarify, EREF was never asking to be part of a livestock strategy. That was the county's recommendation. That would be a broader opportunity if something were to come along. And I get it, the concept of personal responsibility. The Humane Society seizes a couple hundred dogs a month, many times from owners that either, treated it inappropriately or just released it. We passed an ordinance when I was first in the commission that, believe it or not, we had to pass an ordinance that when people were forfeiting their homes due to the recession, they would leave their pets locked in the vacant homes to die. Then we passed an ordinance that made it illegal for people to chain their dogs up outside of their homes all day long, either in the heat or vulnerable to other animals that could attack them. So I agree with you completely. In a perfect scenario, all owners should be held responsible.
People are now doing the same thing with horses.
Right.
They're just packing up and leaving and deserting the horses in the fields, deserting them. So it's happening with horses.
Ms. Wood, you had your light on.
I just wanted to make sure that the board understood one of the principal reasons that we asked for it to come back to the board and for us to negotiate was that, and now I'm hearing actually the price has gone up, doubled, but the ERAF proposed a flat amount of money, and in order to make this legally defensible, we can't just give money to an organization. There has to be a governmental purpose. The board can make that decision to rescue, depending on what you want, horses that, say, for example, the sheriff turns in or our citizens, but it's just for Martin County horses.
Correct.
That has to have a direct correlation to fee for service, and my example is the Humane Society, which provides reporting. We see where the charge that we pay them on an annual basis comes from. There's reporting, there's a very defined scope of work, and so we were looking for your input on that so that we could make sure we were coming up with something that was legally defensible and consistent with your policy.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that this is problematic in our community because we are a very equestrian community. So I know there are a lot of horses out there, and I know that people's economic situations change, and they're not able to care for their horses as they once were. But I look at the history of the sheriff's department taking horses to your organization, and he hasn't taken any there for the last 3 years. So I can't justify signing a contract for $100,000 a year. But I could justify paying for the cost of animals that are taken to your facility.
Okay, well, if I can just share with you, evidently, well, last year was COVID, so when COVID hit, we didn't know honestly what was going to happen. Our horse numbers from Martin County fell. We took 7 horses from Martin County. So if you add that up by approximately $16,000, you're over the $100,000.
I can't send you a check every year that I don't know how it's going to be spent. I don't know if there are going to be any animals rescued.
We were asked, Commissioner Hurd, for what our reporting would be. And so we can report exactly, we can give you a breakdown of every Martin County horse and every bill that goes for that Martin County, what it actually cost us to rehab that horse.
But those are coming from, not from Martin County sheriffs, but rather are coming from Martin County residents who have decided to abandon.
As I said, sometimes Barca would just call because we had a very good relationship, and he would just call and say, okay, come over and get them, and we come over and get them. So it's not a legal seizure, and the sheriff's department doesn't have to use their budget to go to court and do whatever they have to do, but we take the horse.
Well, once again, I can't support just signing a contract for an estimated $100,000 a year because I don't have any idea how much of that you're going to actually how much of that is going to be used for Martin County animals.
All of it's going to be used for Martin County animals. We also get grants, for instance, from the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance and Thoroughbred Charities of America. And we have to prove to them in that grant amount that they give us every year that those monies directly went to those horses. We cannot use those monies for anything else. And we can do the same thing with Martin County.
Thanks.
Okay. We're going to take a comment from Commissioner Campy, and then it's going to come back to the board.
Thank you. A couple of things. One, we're not asking the colleagues today to tell the staff to sign a $100,000 a year contract. The goal today was to have staff negotiate with this organization to create something that we can work on. I think we were doing that. To Commissioner Hetherington's thing, during the cone of silence, I was not involved in any way whatsoever. I never spoke to Denise or any of her people. I did not get involved with the staff. The only meeting I ever attended was before, and our legal staff was at that meeting. And so that was a long time ago. The other point is that, with all due respect to the Humane Society, they do not receive all of their dogs that they take in every month from just animal control. People can voluntarily surrender their pets or they're roaming around. You don't even have to take the time to go all the way to Layton Farms Road. You just open your gate and let the dog loose in the neighborhood, and then someone will have to come and get it. So the goal here and then in terms of the Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital, they're taking in pelicans and eagles, which we're happy about. But they don't all come from animal control or sheriff. You see a turtle or a bird hit on the side of the road, you put it in your car, if you know the organization, and you drive it over there. I feel very comfortable, putting myself out as a commissioner before the three of you in this case. This is a worthwhile organization. It's 21 years in existence, 18 years in Martin County. This is not something a group of people got together, or horse lovers, and said, hey, look, we're just going to try this. They are accredited by many different charitable organizations. They take in money. They're certified and registered with all different appropriate organizations. And we have a mechanism in place that makes sure that people that have contracts with the county are legally, performing the duties that they've contracted to do with us. We give similar organizations hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Humane Society, an excellent organization, receives nearly $750,000 a year. This is, it doesn't have to be 100. They were asked to give a number, either per horse or round it off to see, one way or the other, it's gonna work out. The worst thing that can happen for us is that this organization goes out of business and we have some horses or livestock that need to be put somewhere and we'll have no place to do it. And then what are you gonna do? Put them down? None of us want to participate in that. That's why I'm passionate about this. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think anybody argues the idea that it's not a worthwhile, wonderful thing you all do. I think that is a crystal clear thing. My thoughts and comments haven't changed much from the last time we talked. I think a group of people did get together at some point in time and thought this is a really worthy cause to do, and saving horses and rescuing horses, I guess is the right word to use, was important to some folks. And Denise, I don't know if that was you in the very beginning or whoever started it.
I've been with them for 7 years. As
So
a
whoever started it
21 years ago.
had a dream and put together a program to rescue horses and started a business to rescue horses. And somehow it has gone from that to coming to the county asking for funds to participate in that process. I mean, I think if I boil it down as simple as you can get to it, that's what's being asked here.
Martin County is a horse community, and there are horse owners in
Denise?
every single district.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, okay.
Technically, we're not supposed
Oh, I'm sorry.
to have a presentation.
I'm sorry.
So please.
I don't think anybody argues that we're not a agricultural community. I don't think anybody argues that we're not a horse community. We are that. There's no question. But someone decided that they wanted to operate a business that maybe that business model hasn't planned out or played out the way that someone thought it ought to play out. That maybe in the beginning it was 7 or 10 or 15 horses a year, and then it turned into something really popular where it turned into 66 or 67 horses at the peak or wherever you were at with that equation. And how the organization got from 10 or 7 or 6 to 67 can clearly be defined and supported. I just don't know that that's the business we need to be in, and I haven't changed really on that position. And so whether there was an RFP request done or not, in terms of those that want to support horses, and I shared with you this before, my father grew up raising horses. This isn't a non-horse lover kind of a thing. I couldn't do horses because I was crazy allergic to them. I tried, but it didn't work. It just comes down to what are we in the business of doing, and is this a business that Martin County is needing to take on because we're being asked to take it on or not? And I just don't believe that that's something we need to do.
I just want to be clear, it's not a business, it's a not-for-profit.
We are a nonprofit from the very beginning.
Not a business.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? You had
I
a
made a
motion, and can you, it's been so long, can you please restate the motion?
My motion is the staff's recommendation if the well, I guess it's not the staff. Move that the board direct staff to negotiate with EREF to provide livestock rescue services as outlined in the RFP 2020-3251 for Martin County Livestock pursuant to board direction, and return to the board with an agenda item for consideration of a contract and a budget resolution for funding. And if it's not supposed to be livestock, even though if the sheriff took on a cow that was roaming on 714, I don't know where they would go with it, but EREF was willing to add that into their scope of services because the county asked them to.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy. Okay.
Sorry.
It looks like the motion fails for a lack of a second. And thank you for being here, and again, we appreciate your organization.
Thank you.
Mr. Stokas. Our next item is departmental number 1, Office of Management and Budget items, which require board approval.
Ms. Manning, introduce yourself.
Jennifer Manning, O&B Director. The first item on the agenda is permission to apply for the 2021 Transportation Alternative Grant Program for the Southeast Avalon Drive Sidewalk Project. It's in the amount of $42,558.50, and it requires a $13,000 grant match, which is programmed in the CIP for FY 2024. The second item is permission to accept a radiological emergency preparedness grant agreement in the amount of $555,982, and it will cover salaries, planning equipment, and training to enhance the radiological emergency program in the event we have a nuclear radiological emergency. And that does not require a grant match. Third item is permission to accept the local planning agency grant funding for the Bridge Road resurfacing project. The total project amount is $4.1 million. The grant amount will be roughly $3.6 million, and it requires a match of $556,054. Fourth item is permission to accept the public transportation grant agreement for FY21 for the Marty bus service, and it is a total amount of $670,000. It requires $335,000 match, and the grant amount is $335,000. Fifth item is another OMB item, and this morning we had a discussion with the health department, and she mentioned the collaboration with the emergency management department in our fire rescue to move the COVID shot to the Treasure Coast Mall. So we're requesting a lease, approval of a lease agreement and a budget resolution. And the budget resolution is anticipating a FEMA funding of 100% of whatever it costs to administer the program for the COVID distribution.
And Jennifer, if I can tag on, we have Ms. Wade here in case you have any questions on that, but we will be returning with another resolution for the furniture and equipment that will be necessary to equip that facility. Ms. Wade put up a list today, and so I approved it, so that will be coming back to you as well. Thanks.
The sixth item is amendment to the contract between the Senior Resource Association and Martin County Board of Commissioners. And all they're requesting is an extension. We have a 10% match for the transportation disadvantage, and they're just amending the budget for time frame. The seventh item is a resolution to change the Federal Transit Administration authorizing official. Currently, our Deputy County Administrator, Don Dallinson, is the authorizing official, and we would like to change that authorizing official to the Public Works Director, Jim Gorton, moving forward. It requires an official resolution. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. Does anybody have questions for staff? Commissioner Smith?
Just a quick, Jen, and I should have asked this before. I apologize for not getting the answer. Just more curious than anything. On the Bridge Road project, is it anticipated, or is there going to be any swale work as part of that? Where there, I noticed there was guardrail work and whatnot that's going to be done. Okay. Do you know if there's any swale work that is?
Mr. Gorton's coming in to answer that. I don't think Ms. Manning.
I saw him earlier. No, I appreciate that, but then he was here and then he was gone. Hey, Jim. Good afternoon. On the Bridge Road project, is there going to be any swale work that's part of that, or is it just merely resurfacing and guardrail?
The Bridge Road project is going to improve. It's going to improve some shoulders. There's going to be very minor swale work. There's going to be some, high spots taken out, but it's not a drainage project. It's more of a resurfacing project with some shoulder improvements for safety reasons.
Okay. I just noticed over the last some years that those swales along Bridge have gotten really super overgrown, and I didn't know if that would somehow be worked in.
So our field operations division is working on that exact issue right now.
No,
It's
thank
going to
you.
be separate from this project, but it is something that is on the project list to do.
Thanks very much. Do you want a motion for all of it?
Yes, please, unless anybody wants to separate them out. Okay,
Move
please.
approval of the item.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to departmental number 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval, $1 million or greater, presented by Christy Brotherton.
Good morning, Christy Brotherton, Purchasing Manager. The item we have for discussion today is our Murphy Road Bridge Replacement Project. You may remember this item. It was presented to you back in October, and the board chose to award the contract to Cohen & Graham. Today, the staff is asking for board approval to approve a mutual termination to that contract between the county and Cohen & Graham. A little background for this request: when this project was designed and bid, it was done so to have one lane of traffic, one span open during the entire duration. The intent was never to close this bridge during construction. We have a lot of surrounding communities that would be impacted. This is approximately a year-long project, I believe. During the bid process, there was never any questions raised by any of the bidders as to any issues with the method of construction, the duration, the schedule, nothing. So the contract was awarded to Cohen & Graham per board direction. Capital Projects staff met with the contractor, had the pre-construction meeting, and at that time it was brought to staff's attention that the contractor could not complete the contract as awarded. Obviously, that posed some issues for us. This project is primarily funded with DOT grant funds. There's a lot of environmental implications. There's timelines we have to meet. So with that being said, the county felt that it was in the best interest to enter into a mutual termination agreement with the contractor, which is attached to this board item. Per our purchasing manual, section 17.5, we do have the opportunity, if a contractor cannot meet the terms and conditions of their contract, that we can move on to the next responsible and responsive bidder. In this case, it was Brothers Construction. We did reach out to them. They did notify us that they have taken on some other large bridge projects since we awarded the original contract, so they were not able to enter into this contract with us. So we moved on to the third responsible bidder, which is Kiewit Infrastructure. So item number 2 for our recommended action is we are requesting that the board award the contract to Kiewit Infrastructure in the amount of $4,525,394.15. And then the item number 3 for recommended action is to move that the board authorize the county administrator designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. Here to answer any questions.
Commissioner Hurd.
And where is the additional 400,000 coming from?
Gas tax funds will be used for additional funding required for this contract.
So were those dedicated to another project that's going to fall off the books now?
Mr. Gordon?
Jim Gordon, Public Works Director. Those came out of fund balance. That was one of the items that was in the fund balance item today. So it was funds that weren't spent from a previous year.
Commissioner Smith.
Move approval of the item.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Brotherton. And our last item of the day is departmental quasi-judicial. Number 1, request for plat approval for Pentalago Phase 1, presented by Peter Walden. And this is a quasi-judicial item. So we'll start with our ex parte disclosures. Commissioner Smith.
If I have any other files.
Commissioner Campy.
I have none.
Commissioner Hurd.
I have none.
I have none as well. And does the applicant have returned receipts?
None required.
Any interveners?
No, ma'am.
And Mary Kate, would you like to swear in the witnesses?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
With your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Peter Walden with the Growth Management Department. This is a request by Tightline Lakes, LLC. Requests a plat approval for Phase 1 of the Pentalago project. Pentalago is a 42-lot ag ranchette development on an approximate 212-acre site located on the north side of Interstate I-95 and accessed from Southwest Citrus Boulevard and Palm City Farms. Included is a request for a certificate of public facilities exemption. The Pentalago project received master site plan approval in January of 2009. The project received revised master and Phase 1 final site plan approval on August 14, 2018. Phase 1 includes 26 lots and the associated infrastructure. Most of the infrastructure improvements have been completed. There is attached to the agenda an engineer's estimate of probable cost, contract to complete, and surety for the remaining balance of construction. Staff has reviewed the application and finds that the plat to be consistent with the approved final site plan and all applicable state and local regulations. Therefore, staff recommends the board move Staff recommends that the board move to receive and file the agenda item along with the attachments and staff report as Exhibit 1, and move that the board approve the plat and contract for construction of requirement improvements with the accompanying security for Pentalago Phase 1. And also, staff requests that the board permit minor clerical corrections to the draft contract and surety to assure accuracy and sufficiency of the documents. That concludes my presentation, but I'd also like to submit the full agenda item, including the staff report, along with a copy of my work history for evidence as Exhibit 1.
Great. Anybody have questions for staff? Nope. And there's no other presentation?
No, there is an applicant.
Okay. And Commissioner Campy?
Seeing if there's any public comment. If there's not, I would make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Okay. Does anybody have public comment on the item? Seeing no public comment, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And that ends our agenda for today. I'm going to take public comment, 505 public comment at 11:48. Anyone from the public seeking to public comment? Nobody's on Zoom. Commissioner comment, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Campy. Commissioner Hurd.
I'm good.
I just had, this morning during break, I spoke to a resident who was in the gallery that had a public comment this morning, and she was inquiring on an agenda item that was coming back about traffic calming throughout the county. Now, typically in public comment, it's just a 3-minute, opportunity for the public to comment. But one of the other prior public speakers, somebody responded. So if you could reach out to that resident, her name is Amy Pritchett, and let her know when that agenda item is coming back.
Yes, I'll get her contact information.
Okay, wonderful. That's all I have. Ms. Krista?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Woods? Okay, our upcoming Board of County Commission meetings are March 9th and March 23rd. And with that, we are adjourned.